Shelby. Here we go. We are. All right. I think, Jordan, I think we have all of our speakers on. It looks like I'm seeing everyone on. Is there, let's see. Krish, is your camera working yet?
It is not. I have now 3 computers up and running. So I am sure by the time I'm supposed to go, one of them will be.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining our town hall this evening. I know that you all probably have a lot of excellent questions for us, and we're really looking forward to hearing them and sharing a little bit with you about what we're up to and how we can best coordinate. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our moderator, Jordan Williams, to get us started. Sorry. Okay, I'm getting a note from Jordan. She's also not able to hear anything. Okay, that's okay. We will pivot. That's what we do well in the nonprofit world. Shelby, do you mind stepping in as moderator until Jordan's able to get her speaker and camera working? Thank you.
Absolutely. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so grateful for everyone's participation in this community dialogue session. So to kick us off, I'd like to welcome Bo to tonight. So Bo Machayo currently serves as the regional director for Senator Warner. Bo has a decade of experience in public policy and public engagement with stakeholders and elected officials at the local, state, and federal government level. He has worked on a wide range of domestic and foreign policy issues, particularly relating to African diaspora and development, economic development, and the environment, and has passed legislation, formed coalitions, and accomplished organizational goals throughout his career. Welcome, Bo, and feel free to take it away.
Well, thanks, Shelby, and thank Kristin for all the hard work that you all are doing. Like Shelby mentioned, my name is Bo Machayo. I am currently the Northern Virginia Regional Director for U.S. Senator Mark Warner, but get to deal a lot with a lot of the recent immigrant and immigrant community here in the Commonwealth. So off the top, I want to thank also the diaspora community, Afghan diaspora community, that's really been helpful and been a key partner in throughout this entire process as folks from Afghanistan have arrived in the Commonwealth, and their contribution should definitely be noted. I also want to thank a lot of folks who are on this call who are community partners as well. And as we continue to kind of create an environment here in the Commonwealth and also throughout the country to make sure that folks have a place to live and have jobs and have all the things that are necessary as they begin to call America home. Everybody on this call is super important to that mission. We also recognize the importance and urgency in helping individuals leave Afghanistan who wanted to and who still want to. And we've, throughout our office, have assisted by flagging thousands of US citizens and Afghan nationals to the State Department and the Department of Defense during the military-led evacuation process. As many folks on this call know, the military-led evacuation has concluded, and there are no more additional military flights from Afghanistan. Having said that, Senator Warner is in communication with the State Department on the new process, allowing for the safe exit of remaining US citizen and Afghan nationals who still seek to leave the country. Our office can definitely be helpful if you want to submit a request for assistance through our website so that we can record folks' requests and communicate future updates and you can find those updates will be communicated through our casework email. You can also monitor the U.S. Embassy's website for additional updates as well. Looking forward to hearing this discussion, and I will continue to, I'm looking forward to hearing this discussion and the remaining speakers. Thanks.
Thank you, Bo. So I do want to just take a moment to say that we are going to leave a lot of space at the end of this call for Q&A. So we encourage all participants to drop questions in the chat. We will be fielding questions to our speakers. And so we just really encourage audience participation in the chat box. So next, we are going to transition to Kristin Peck, who will be representing all four agencies, resettlement agencies on the call today. We have several different resettlement agencies on the call, and Kristin is going to be sharing some information from the resettlement agency's perspective. So Kristin joined Lutheran Social Services in November 2020 as its Chief Executive Officer. Kristin's experience is in child welfare administration and reform, immigration and refugee policy, and human services administration. Prior to joining LSSNCA, she served as the founding CEO of West Michigan Partnership for Children, a nonprofit piloting an innovative performance-based child welfare model, where she was the recipient of the 2020 Michigan Federation of Children and Families Advocate of the Year Award. She's also served as the Associate Director of Children's Services at the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, where she oversaw national family reunification and foster care programs for unaccompanied children. Served as the chair of Vulnerable Minors Working Group of Refugee Council USA, and testified to Congress on the protection needs for unaccompanied children. So welcome, Kristin. We're so grateful to have you speak. So yeah, you're welcome to take it away.
Thank you so much, Shelby, and thanks to all of you for taking the time to be with us tonight. It's been a really devastating few weeks, and on behalf of LSSNCA, I just want to offer our condolences for those who have lost loved ones in this humanitarian crisis or whose loved ones are still in Afghanistan, and our hearts and prayers are with you. For us at LSSNCA, and I think I can also speak on behalf of my colleagues at the other resettlement agencies, the bright light this past month really has been having the honor to welcome and to serve our Afghan allies, and also to see the overwhelmingly positive outpouring of generosity from our community at large. We hope that this strong signal of welcome extends once our new neighbors are settled into their permanent homes. You know, we at LSSNCA know that creating communities of welcome requires us to cultivate strong interfaith and intersectional partnerships. And so we're so grateful for the outpouring of interest and support from the Afghan community. We appreciate the partnerships that are longstanding, and we also appreciate the partnerships we've been able to develop thus far in this past month or so. And I really look forward to expanding our relationship towards our collective goals. We know from our conversations with all of you this past month that there's so much that you're already doing. And so we thought this town hall would be a good opportunity to have a dialogue about key gap areas and needs and how we can collectively work together to make an impact. As Shelby mentioned, Lutheran Social Services in the National Capital Area is one of 4 resettlement agencies authorized by the Department of State in the DC metro area. The other 3 agencies are represented on this call by my colleagues. And if you don't mind raising your hand when I call your names. So we have Jessica Estrada from Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Arlington. We have Sarah Zullo from ECDC. And we have Ruben Chandrasekhar from the International Rescue Committee. And each of our organizations have a long-standing history of serving refugees and newcomers in the DC metro area. We have all rapidly mobilized to serve Afghan allies after spending the past 4 years with significantly diminished refugee programs in the previous administration. And so each of us are called to serve this population. We are enthusiastically doing so. And have had to really quickly scale up our operations. Each of our organizations is authorized resettlement agencies, provide case management services to refugees, and that includes our Afghan allies, and that includes transportation, placement into temporary and permanent housing, cash assistance, school enrollment, refugee health screenings, benefits enrollment, and job training and placement. This program is a true public-private partnership. It's funded by the Department of State and the Office of Health and Human Services Refugee Resettlement Office. Sorry, but this program would not be successful without strong community support. The expectation is that by the State Department is that our clients are self-sufficient in 3 months. And so we all traditionally rely on strong community partners to really help us foster stronger integration outcomes in our community, and to really create those lasting relationships for our new neighbors. We rely on community partnerships to provide things like interpretation, housing setups, transportation, to serve as mentors, ESL conversation partners, and we are all so grateful for the generosity of our community at this particular time. The critical needs for each of our organizations currently are monetary donations. We are currently serving a population of many of our allies who are arriving with parole status. And with that parole status, they are not eligible for the same public benefits that are eligible to those who are arriving with special immigrant visa status. And so many people that we are serving, due to the need to quickly evacuate people, are arriving without the full access to all the benefits. And so we are all trying to shore up additional resources so we can help really fill that gap. We are really interested in having parity in the services we're able to provide for both populations. We're also looking for gift cards to grocery stores, to Target, to Walmart, and then laptops, cell phones, and SIM cards are our biggest in-kind donation needs. And then also help identifying corporate sponsors, that's another need. And really we're all wanting to work with the Afghan community in particular in strategic areas of community engagement for direct client support. I want to note that we've all been flooded by requests for volunteers, and we are doing our best to get back to everyone as quickly as possible who's indicated interest. And so just bear with us as we're getting more interest than we're used to. We've discussed that this is really a marathon at this point and not a sprint. And although we're currently in crisis mode, we all expect to continue to serve Afghan allies for 3, 6, 9 months from now. And we know that the public attention will soon be directed elsewhere. And so we are really looking for sustained support and longstanding partnerships. So while right now we all might be flooded with folks who are interested in doing home setups, that may not be the case 3 months from now. So you will all get the opportunity to engage in those ways. So thank you for your interest and engagement. I look forward to partnering with you. And before we turn it back over to Shelby and to Krish, I just wanted to check in and see if any of the other resettlement agencies wanted to say a few words.
Go ahead, Ruben. I saw you unmute at the same time as I'll defer to you first.
Well, thank you, Kristin, and good evening, everyone. Yeah, I think just in addition to what's been offered, I do want to add that, the IRC has also been operational in Afghanistan since 1988. About 99% of our staff there are Afghan nationals. Yeah, so it's been a really difficult set of weeks for the organization, given what's happening in the country, and for our colleagues there. What I can share, and I can add this to the link, is in addition to some of the services that we're offering, obviously in the DC and Maryland area, we also have a digital resource that's been deployed. It's called Signpost, that offers information to people in Afghanistan on various I suppose pathways that could be available, right, in order to get to safety. And that will be stood up very soon in Dari and Pashto as well. So I'll put the link in the chat.
And I would just echo, this is Jessica from Catholic Charities, and we operate exclusively in Northern Virginia, but just want to echo, all of our staff, especially our staff who have family and friends in Afghanistan, are having a difficult time. But the one thing that they have shared with us is that they are very excited to serve the people who are coming, as they are welcoming them. So they're welcoming them as if they're welcoming their own family, who they're still waiting on in some cases. The only other thing I would mention in terms of volunteers is professional level volunteers. So if you know dentists, if you know doctors, we're coming across cases where there may be some special circumstances and we need to reach a resource fairly quickly. So if you have links with those types of services, or know people who might be able to offer those pro bono, if you know some pro bono attorneys who might be willing to offer some services, those are all the resources that we can call upon when we need them. And that are very, very valuable at this time.
Great. Thank you, Kristin, Ruben, and Jessica. That's really helpful information. So to transition, I'm going to introduce Krish Omara Vignaraha. Krish is the president and CEO of Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service. She previously served in the Obama White House as policy director for First Lady Michelle Obama, where she led the First Lady's signature Let Girls Learn initiative. Krish also worked at the State Department as senior advisor under Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Secretary of State John Kerry, where she coordinated development and implementation of multiple programs, including those concerning refugees and migration, engagement with religious communities, the legal dimensions of U.S. foreign policy, and regional issues related to Africa and the Middle East. She has been recognized as one of the Daily Record's top 100 women, which is a fun fact. So welcome, Krish, and you're welcome to take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Shelby. Really appreciate that. Good evening, everyone. Really so glad to be with you and this amazing set of panelists. As noted, I'm the CEO of Lutheran Immigration Refugee Service. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, LIRS is the largest faith-based national nonprofit dedicated exclusively to immigrants and refugees. I'll tell you a little bit more about us in a moment, but I just really wanted to start off by extending my sincerest condolences. I know that this is an incredibly difficult time for you. I imagine many of you have family and friends. Even looking at the chat box, I know that obviously and understandably there is still grave concern for those who were lucky enough to get out, and of course those who still remain. I know that my own kind of personal experience is not the same, but to the extent that it's helpful to share. I was actually born in Sri Lanka, so my parents fled a country that was, I guess, on the brink of civil war. When I was 9 months old, we left Sri Lanka. And I know growing up, I remember what it was to watch my kind of home, my birthplace struggle with, poverty and conflict, ethnic tension, the climate disaster. It's obviously been heartbreaking. So just wanted to say my thoughts and prayers are, and those at LIRS, really our entire national network are with you guys. I also just want to extend my deep gratitude because this is kind of my latest in a series of being able to meet with the leaders of your community, and it's just been inspiring. Your quick action, the willingness to mobilize around this effort, the willingness to put aside or be fueled by the emotional concern and still be clear-eyed and saying, what can I do? So tonight we're here obviously to talk about the refugee resettlement and how it fits in, what we can do together to serve at this historic moment. Just to give you a little bit of context really quickly, because I know sometimes people are saying, well, how can we do this? You know, how can we meet this moment? So LIRS actually began in 1939. We kind of were born in the crucible of the Second World War, resettling refugees coming from Nazi Germany, and then responded to basically kind of the range of crises, the fall of Saigon, when the nation resettled 130,000 refugees. LIRS was able to resettle 17,000 just in that 1 year. Since the beginning of the program for Afghan SIVs, we've resettled nearly 10,000, thanks in partnership to groups like LSSNCA. So I just wanted to kind of take a step back and frame the conversation in terms of how our organizations collaborate. You know, for example, LIRS and LSSNCA. So as you likely know, refugees often flee their home country to escape war or persecution due to a range of factors that lead them to be vulnerable. They register with the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, or UNHCR, which will then refer them to the State Department's Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration. Then after pre-screening, their information sent to the Department of State's Refugee Processing Centers, which coordinates with the 9 refugee resettlement agencies. So LIRS is one of them, IRC, ECDC, USCCB are 3 of our other colleagues. And obviously we are really lucky to have the local agency representatives that you've just heard from here this evening. So we partner across the country with organizations like LSSNCA to, as Kristin described, find the best place for refugee families to live, to meet them at the airport, to really set up their homes so we can make the transition as seamless as possible, to help navigate language courses, to connect them to employers, to enroll children in public schools. So Afghan allies, and kind of why this situation is a bit different, is they're coming to the US under the Special Immigrant Visa Program, or they're coming as P1, P2s, P3s, eligible for the full host of refugee resettlement benefits. That includes up to 5 years of ongoing services that are funded by the Office of Refugee Resettlement, plus public benefits to cover rent, potentially accessing Medicaid, food stamps, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, as we all know, due to the chaotic nature of the evacuation and the need to get people out of Afghanistan quickly, the majority of our Afghan neighbors and brothers and sisters are entering the US under the Humanitarian Parole system, which currently limits their ability to access services funded by the federal government. So therefore, LIRS and our partner agencies have stood up, working with the State Department, a parallel system called the Afghan Humanitarian Parolee Support System, or APS. So this is basically a new case management program that's been established by the State Department to provide for 90 days of support. So under APS, new arrivals will receive initial relocation support services, including housing, assistance with school enrollment, clothing, access to medical care. Of course, I think many of us in this meeting know that 90 days is not nearly enough. And so, I know we've talked a bit about some of the gaps that we are trying to fill. From a national perspective, I just wanted to share that we are working to urge members of Congress, pushing the administration to ensure that this subset, the parolees, receive the same protection that they would have been entitled to if we had met our not just kind of promise to these individuals, but frankly, what we know we need to set them up for success and for the communities that will receive them. And so our hope is to make sure that we can provide the 90 days, but go well beyond that. And so on the local level, we're partnering with communities like you who already have stepped up in terms of these massive needs and meeting them. So I just wanted to say, we have just in terms of Afghanistan, my final point before I conclude is just, we have not given up on our friends, our family in Afghanistan. We will do everything in our power to advocate for the evacuation and protection of our Afghan allies. The military presence and its withdrawal cannot mean the end of our mission, right? We need to make sure that there are safe land crossings. We need to continue to push the administration to negotiate, whether it's with Pakistan or Uzbekistan, to make sure that there are safe land crossings, because we know so many continue to be in harm's way. And so really grateful to have this conversation, and thank you so much for your support and your partnership.
Thank you so much, Krish. We really appreciate that. So next on our list is Haranessa Fariad. I'm so grateful to introduce her tonight. We've had the opportunity to work with her as a member and leader in the Afghan community. So Haranessa Fariad is the Director of Outreach for Multi-Faith Neighbors Network, or MFNN. Ms. Fariad is also Head of Outreach at the Al-Dulles Area Muslim Society, or ADAMS Center. Ms. Fariad is the Secretary of the Board of Directors at Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy Leadership Circle for One America Movement, member of the Fairfax County Faith and Equity Committee, and involved with many other faith-based organizations. Ms. Fariad is the founder and music director of America's First Mosque Youth Choir, the Adams Beat Choir. Ms. Fariad is the founder and co-host of the Sister Act podcast, along with co-host Dr. Sabrina Dent and Rabbi Susan Shunkman. These conversations center around shame, stigma, rights, and social justice issues, and how our faiths address these topics. We're so grateful to have you in this conversation, Haranessa, so you're welcome to take it away.
Thank you so much, Shelby and Kristin and everybody else who's here tonight, really taking this Avalon issue at the forefront of importance. As an Avalon myself, I'm really honored to be here with you guys tonight and everybody else who's listening. So a few days ago, I think probably like 10 days ago, Kristin and Shelby and I were sitting around and trying to organize something for the Afghan American community in the DMV area to participate in and to be part of this movement, because for us, we feel that we're part of all these Afghans that are coming in and we want to be part of the movement. And so what could we do to make sure that the Afghan Americans are included in what is going on? So we came up with what we call the Avalon Project. And we wanted to do something that was streamlined, organized, and processed through Lutheran Social Services, but also connecting the other agencies as well, but giving the Afghan Americans the forefront in actually being the volunteers and the ones who are running around and doing a lot of the work through the Avalon Project. So just to give you a really brief rundown, and then Kristin, I think you have the link for the sign up if anybody else wants to sign up for that. I do have some people who have signed up who are not Afghan, but that's okay. If you want to sign up, that's fine as well. We need more hands on deck as any organization needs in these types of work. So basically the Avalon Project, I'm leading it with 3 managers underneath who are going to really take home ownership of what it is we're going to do under these 3 projects, on these 3 headings underneath the Avalon Project. So first is a housing search department, and this manager will be someone overseeing the volunteers who will be searching for permanent and temporary housing in the DMV area for our Afghan refugees coming in, because we know that housing is important, and if they don't have a place to live, that we can't really do anything else if housing is not there for them. Underneath the volunteers, there will be 1 main entry volunteer, 2 backup entry volunteers who will take lead from our spreadsheet and form the Lutheran Social Services forwarded emails added to the LSS main spreadsheet, contact landlords and property managers directly to obtain more information, and directly highlight the list in green and inform the directors of LSS of availability of housing. These 2 people will have to go through, signing an NDA because there's privacy issues, and making sure that our clients are taken care of and their information is not given out. The second part of this is the Resettlement Community Liaison. There's a manager for this part as well, and the volunteers under this segment would convey necessary information or changes from the Avalon Project to the head of volunteers. The volunteers will coordinate with other resettlement agencies who are here tonight for donations and supply inquiry. And this is a huge deal because we have donations coming in to various different agencies, but we don't really have a rundown of who has what and who needs what. So we want to streamline that, and our volunteers are going to be the ones doing that. And if LSS has something, Catholic Charities needs it, we're going to work together to making sure that Catholic Charities gets that to the client so that their needs are being met. Volunteers will search out and coordinate supporting these organizations. And this is extremely key because without the knowledge of volunteers doing this work, the agencies would not be able to talk to each other, and we wouldn't be able to help all the clients with the needs that they have with the donations. And the third part is the donations transport. This group will convey, and the volunteers will pick up supplies from donation sites and deliver to the homes of the Afghan refugees. So basically, if we have something at Lutheran or Catholic Charities or any of the other agencies, this volunteer would go and to the site, pick up the item, and then deliver it to the house of the client. And also these volunteers will get a chance to pick up the Afghan refugees from their homes, take them shopping for supplies, and then bring them back. Of course, some of these will require you to speak either Dari or Pashto because we want to be able to communicate with our clients. And that is something that is a big proponent of this. And that's why we're reaching out to the Afghan American community in the DMV to take this initiative and be part of this program. It's going to be extremely beneficial for our Afghan brothers and sisters who are coming in. When they see us, who speak the language, who know the culture, who know how to interact with them, it gives them a lot of ease and makes them feel that, okay, I have people who know who I am and what I need, and that I can have a conversation with them, and then also be able to relay some of their other needs to the agencies that they might not have been able to do before, or they might have. And all of these things are going to be stipend through the funding that's provided for the refugees through the resettlement agencies. And we're going to work together. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more people sign up for this. Right now, I have over 30 people who have signed up. And when I put it out, I did tell people that you're going to get a background check done because that is necessary to make sure that all the Afghan Americans interacting with the clients are cleared, and that we're not just going to put anyone in contact with the clients without properly vetting them out. I'm not sure if the link went up, Shelby or Kristin, but it's there. If you want to volunteer through the Avalon Project, please go ahead and sign up. Would love to work with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Haranessa. Yes, and the link is in the chat. So everyone on the call is welcome to sign up using that link, as well as sharing it with your friends, family, your network. So thank you so much again, Haranessa, and we're really excited and grateful for the Afghan Project and the ways in which volunteers through this project will be able to support the resettlement agencies on this call, as well as really serve and welcome newly arriving Afghan families to the area in such a special way. So yeah, thank you so much again. So now we're actually going to transition to Q&A. I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Jordan, who is going to be moderating the Q&A. So if you haven't had a chance already to drop your questions in the chat, please do so now. But Jordan, you're welcome to take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. So our first question for the general panel is, how are LSS and LRIS working directly with the Afghan community in order to resettle this wave of arrivals?
Krish, I'm happy to start with this one. You'd like me to? Okay. Thank you for that question. LSSNCA has been resettling Afghans who receive special immigrant visa status for about 20 years. And we've actually, we have a lot of Afghans on our team. Many people who we've served and gone through our programs now work for us. And so we think that that's a really nice, comforting sign of welcome when we have our frontline staff able to welcome people who have that shared experience. We are working with long-standing partners and new partners, and we really are prioritizing bringing on more Afghan volunteers as quickly as possible. And so as Haranessa indicated, if you would like to sign up through the sign-in sheet that she's posted in the chat, that would be a great way for us to prioritize having Dari and Pashto speakers so that we can assign. Our goal is to assign every client we serve with a volunteer, and we would like to be able to assign Dari and Pashto speaking volunteers from the Afghan community. All of the case managers or all of the clients we work with are assigned a case manager at LSSNCA. And so the case manager would really be taking the lead, helping do everything from coordinating transportation from when the client arrives to helping them identify temporary and then permanent housing, really mobilizing our community partners to set up that housing, working with helping the client shop our in-kind donations. We've had a really generous outpouring of in-kind donations, helping the client enroll for public benefits, job training, placement, but that they can't do that alone, and it really relies our community partnerships. And so we are really grateful for all of you that have reached out already, and please continue to do so that we can show a really strong signal of welcome to the Afghan allies that we're working with, and we can continue to support them long term. And I will also note, if you have already indicated your interest and we haven't gotten back to you yet, we are working as fast as we can to sort through the volunteer requests to make sure that we're appropriately matching skills and interests with needs, and then we're doing the vetting that we do for everyone that works at LSSNCA, whether they're volunteer or staff. Thank you.
And Chris, I don't know if you want to add anything on in the broader scope.
Sure, I can just add, just from the advocacy perspective, we have been engaged with groups in some of our conversations with the administration, just because obviously we think it is critically important to explain our experience from the resettlement community, but candidly the perspective from the Afghan American community I think is really important. We are also trying to strengthen our ties, especially kind of knowing how important and how long this process will be. So we'll be continuing to reach out. I've been actually trying to have some meetings with groups like the Afghan American Community Organization and others like that. So I will put my email address in the chat box. If there's groups that kind of from an advocacy perspective, it would be useful for LRS to connect with. Our aim is really just to kind of hear your recommendations, hear what you are seeing, hearing, and then to try to make sure that those recommendations and observations get communicated to the State Department, DHS, HHS, the White House.
Thank you. Our second question is directed to Bo. Some of our guests have provided either requests or the names of loved ones to the Senator's office and also to the State Department, but they've not yet been able to hear back. They're concerned about the lack of response given the life and death situation in Afghanistan. So they're wondering if you could give them an approximated timeline.
Hey, thanks for that question. As you know, we are currently working to develop a process with the State Department to be able to make sure that we're responding to all the requests that we had. Unfortunately, we weren't able to address all of the requests, but all of those requests, if you have already submitted them, are currently in the queue and are being worked on together between the Senator's office and the State Department. And so we'll be circling back. I know that I've continue to get emails, but we will circle back with you all as soon as that process is kind of solidified for this next process. But you have our commitment that we will continue to work to resettle anyone who wants to come to the United States.
Thank you. Our next question: how is it determined the priority in which funds are disseminated. Every family that arrives is going to require rental assistance and food. So who gets priority housing and financial assistance first?
I'm happy to start with that, and then would also, unless Jessica or Ruben or Sarah would like to take that.
Go ahead. Kristin, you can start. Yeah.
So we assign a case manager to each of the clients we serve, and we receive funding from our grants with the federal government to be able to provide such financial assistance and service to everyone we serve. So it's not a question of do we need to prioritize one over another. I think the broader question is as others have mentioned and Krish has mentioned, the government funds only go so far, and we all want to make this work long term. We really want to be able to provide long term support to not even that long term, but the government funds end after 3 months. And I think we all know that is not sufficient to really set up our new neighbors for success. And so when we're doing fundraising or raising in-kind donations and bringing in volunteers, we're trying to maximize all the resources we can to provide that critical safety net for as long as possible. I think the gap area that Krish was mentioning earlier is there is concern right now because depending on whether our allies have entered with a special immigrant visa status or with a parole status, there are different eligibility requirements for benefits and services, and those with humanitarian parole are not able to access some critical benefits such as refugee medical assistance or cash assistance. And so what we're trying to do at LSSNCA, and I'm sure my partners are doing the same, is fill those gaps with donations. So I'll give you a really concrete example. We had a family of who are paroled in who arrived yesterday, and they are required to, within 7 days, have their immunizations to be in compliance with the immigration requirements. Well, if they had arrived, same fact pattern, same story, but with a special immigrant visa, we would have been able to, that would have been covered. All of their health care, their immunizations would have been covered. But because they arrived with the parole status, we're paying out of pocket. And so that's a way we're able to mobilize monetary donations to really help fill gaps and ensure parity. I think all of us are concerned. We want to ensure that there is equity and parity amongst all of our clients and the services we're able to provide.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that, and also emphasize what Kristin mentioned about every case is very unique and every case is different. And so we do tailor things to make sure we're trying to meet the family's goals and what their ultimate, goal might be as well. But I will also say that, one thing that is clear across all agencies is there are certain contractual agreements that we do and certain things that we are obligated to provide as part of our State Department mandate. So household items, making sure housing is safe and secure. There are basic things that we are providing. But then on top of that, because of the kindness and the generosity of the community, we're able to even provide more things like school supplies and sometimes laptops or other things that the families need that are not necessarily on the State Department list, but yet we know the families are going to need them. And so we're able to provide those as well. So every case is very different, but every case does receive the same level of service as is contractually obligated. And then in addition to that, additional things as we're able to provide them as agencies.
Yeah, and I think I'll just add that just to reemphasize how important it is to establish a great relationship between our staff, regardless of the agency, and our clients. And as Kristin and others have mentioned, it's a really intimate relationship where people are being received at the airport and accompanied in their resettlement journey for many months, right? And in that accompaniment, I think we build a lot of trust between the staff and the clients, and get to know their needs that go above and beyond, maybe what the government mandates us to do. And I think often we go much beyond that. And it's largely because of community support, whether it's in the form of individuals who volunteer for the organizations, or cash assistance, right? We do collect a lot of private donations from individuals, from foundations, that go a long way in assisting our clients to navigate various crises, whether it's a rental issue because they haven't been able to get to a job fast enough. Perhaps it's because of a medical issue that they haven't been able to work, right? There's lots of factors, and we do our best to tailor our resources to the client's needs, regardless of their nationality.
Thank you. Our fourth question, if a church is interested in sponsoring either one family or a group for at least a year, which agency is best to contact?
I think all of our agencies would welcome that. So, I know at LSSNCA we have a good neighbor partner program. And that's a way to be involved with sponsoring a family. We have different levels of engagement. And so it could be something like a home setup, like a shorter term engagement or a longer term engagement. But I know that all of the organizations need that type of support. And so I think we would all welcome that.
How can Afghan women help women who are still in Afghanistan? And how can they also help those who are arriving or scheduled to arrive in the coming weeks? Is there any sort of club that's been created? Are we planning to host any women's events? What do we feel would be most resourceful?
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yep, Sarah, we can hear you.
Great. So my name is Sarah. I'm the director of ECDC. I'm sorry if my connection isn't that good. We do currently have, we've been running this program for about 2 years. We call it the Afghan Women Circle Group. It's a group of Afghan women who meet on a monthly basis and specifically talk about the need of Afghan women in the Northern Virginia area. It could be from education to being able to make doctor appointments or being involved more in the life of their children, being able to drive. And I think that will be a great place to start with. We want this group to grow. And I think now more than ever, the need of the Afghan woman would be even greater within the new population we are ready to welcome. So I'll be more than happy to share the link with all of you. And as a contact person at ECDC who runs this program, has been quite successful for us. It started very organically with a couple of women wanting to just have a place for themselves to come and talk about their issues. Often we tend to work and spend a lot of time with what we call the breadwinner of the families. And we maybe didn't always have the time to give a voice or a place for women. And it's not just for the Afghan women, it sort of started with the Afghan women because the Afghan women were the one who come to us and said they wanted to have a place and a voice, and we expanded on that. And I think maybe that's definitely a place to start with.
Yeah, I'll mention briefly, we also have an Afghan women's group who meets in Arlington, and I will provide the contact information for the individual who coordinates that as well in the chat.
And I'll just ask if my team can include in the chat about the Tea Club that we have for Afghan women that sounds similar.
We are also getting a lot of interest about foster families. Are any of the agencies recruiting specifically Afghan families to foster Afghan children? And to that extent, is there any way to speed up the process? When does it start and how long should it take?
Absolutely. That's a great question. At LSSNCA, we do operate the unaccompanied refugee minor program in Virginia and in Washington, D.C. And so we are able to work with families in Maryland, DC, and Virginia, as long as the Maryland suburbs that are close to DC, because that's where our license is. And we are recruiting Afghan foster parents. We're recruiting all interested foster parents. And we've been told by our funder that in some cases, if there's an urgent placement need, we can expedite the licensing process. It usually takes up to about 90 days, but we're told that we can do so more quickly if there's an urgent need. I will say we just had an orientation this evening for our Virginia program. If you look on our calendar on our website under events, you can see upcoming orientations. There's also on our website a page about the unaccompanied refugee minor program and a space to fill out a foster parent interest form.
So I would encourage you to contact LSS. Catholic Charities does not do unaccompanied refugee minors. Our unaccompanied minors program is purely family reunification. So that would be unaccompanied minors who are reuniting with family members in Northern Virginia. So we do not do foster or adoption of refugee minors. So talk to LSS.
And just on this, Jordan, I know there was a question just about who does foster care in Maryland. So I just also wanted to mention that if you live within, I guess, there's a program in Crofton through Bethany Christian Services. So that may be an option too.
Thank you. Are we still looking for volunteers to assist with the apartment setups? And do we anticipate still needing to set up apartments later in September and going into October?
I'm happy to start with this. We have had such overwhelmingly positive response to interest in apartment setups. And right now we have more people interested than we have apartments to set up. But we will have more apartments to set up, and it will be long after September. We expect to have continued high arrivals of Afghan allies, but also other populations. You know, we know that President Biden has increased the refugee ceiling, and so we're expecting increased arrivals this year. And so if we haven't reached out to you yet, we will. We just have not had enough apartments for all the people who want to set up one. And I will tell you, that is a rare and wonderful problem to have. It's often the other way around. So thank you if you've already reached out, and thanks for your patience too. I promise we'll get to you.
Yep, in terms of the IRC, we definitely have a similar situation. You know, we typically have numerous community volunteers who are part of our Welcome Home project, which is basically groups of volunteers who help to furnish apartments prior to our clients arriving. And so, yeah, if you'd like to put your name on a volunteer list, I believe there's a way to share that information through this meeting, our volunteer site. But as Kristin said, you know, we do have lots of volunteers. Currently, we faced a similar situation during the Syrian refugee crisis in 2015, 2016, where we had lots and lots of community volunteers. And what I can tell you is that those who are patient and are able to wait, eventually, you know, will get contacted because it's typically a long list at this point, right? So please be patient with us if you have already applied to volunteer for the organization.
We have a few follow-up questions about housing. What is the long-term plan, and how are people sorted into permanent housing? What's the timeline for that process? There's also a specific concern that with so many families coming at once in the way that the housing market is right now, there may not be enough homes or apartments available for everyone.
I can start on that one and then obviously chime in. You know, again, this is one of those situations where it's very tailored to the family. So in many circumstances, we know families have friends and relatives in the local area. And so we do try to search for housing that would be close by, because that element of having a support system is very critical to adjusting and resettling. So we do try to really, number one, have a place that's going to be affordable for individuals once they are employed and can be able to pay their own rent and utilities, but then also is close to a preferred friend or family member, if that's something that we can do. Yes, the housing right now is extremely limited. And so we are relying a lot on people to come forward and offer properties if they own a property, or they are willing to give our Afghan allies a chance without credit history to rent to them. We've had some really good conversations with different properties and landlords, and I think all the agencies are dealing with this, and we'll be sharing a lot of good information about that. We also temporarily have some agreements with some hotels, long-term kind of suites with a kitchen, to be able to house people until we find permanent housing. And we're trying to do that as quickly as possible, especially for families with school-age children, because we know that school enrollment is very key right now for them.
As a question for all of the agencies on the call, what has been the biggest challenge, either logistical or just working through the system, that we've faced in the last few weeks with the surge of Afghan arrivals? That's for everyone.
I'm happy to start with that. So I just want to underscore what a significant scaling up this was for LSSNCA, and I'm sure some of us are partners too on the phone or on the Zoom. I'll give you the context. So the last year of the Obama administration, we served about 1,500 refugees, which also included Afghan asylum holders. And then each year of the 4 years of the Trump administration, we served 500. So that was a really significant downscaling of our program because of the changed refugee policies of the previous administration. So we were serving 500 people a year. And so last year we served 500 people, 98% of which were Afghan asylum holders. We've now served 500 individuals who are Afghan allies in 1 month. So we've had to serve the amount of people in 1 month that we did in a year. And we're expecting to serve upwards of another 500 in the month of September. So the biggest challenge for us is, we've had incredible outpouring of support from volunteers, and we would not be able to do this without them. LRS has been so generous as to deploy some of their staff to our office to help us. And I'm so grateful to Krish for allowing her staff to do that, because we couldn't do this without them. So we're hiring as fast as we can. Our case management staffs, the ones that we needed to add, were started this week, and then next week, and then the week after. And in the meantime, it's all hands on deck. I was in the office last weekend doing case management, for example. So it's really all hands on deck right now as we try and ramp up as quickly as possible to respond after having very significantly downscaled our operations over the past 4 years.
And to add on to what Christy have just said, we also need to understand the entire country is going out from this pandemic where a lot of things have shut down and reopening slowly. This is social security offices or the health department, etc. Can you hear me?
Yes, Sarah, we can hear you.
Excellent. So we are also operating in this era where everything is going back to normal.
Yeah, I can just add on to that. Another issue I think that's been difficult for staff is just fielding calls from the community. As you can imagine, we have many individuals, families that we've resettled from Afghanistan who are in contact with our office, worried about loved ones, now who are stuck in the country wanting to get out. And I know that's been an emotional toll, obviously, for the community, which we all, very much feel. And it's also a huge emotional toll for the staff who have to take these phone calls and often not be able to offer much in by way of solutions, right? Because we know that the evacuations, the military evacuations have stopped. While the Biden administration has established a family reunification program, the P2 program for Afghanistan, that can potentially reunite spouses and children and a few other immediate family members. The process of how that will happen has not been fully outlined, right? So while it's a glimmer of hope on the horizon, it still seems very far away for people who are very much in danger. And then I think the other problem is challenge is that there just are so many different kinds of arrivals coming in, right? And so it's not just folks from Afghanistan, but other refugees from all over the world that are now beginning to arrive after many, many months of very few arrivals. So staff are definitely stretched thin, and we are, like all of the other agencies, hiring as fast as we can and trying to meaningfully utilize volunteers, right? But that also takes capacity to manage.
Yes, and I'll just mention our proximity to Fort Lee and Quantico, where they are doing some processing. We've also lent staff to that, as well as the repatriation of U.S. citizens that have come through at Dulles. So we've been stretched a little bit in that respect because of our location and because of our agreements to support in these different areas. But as Kristin mentioned, we're all case managers right now, so we're all trying to do the best we can to make sure everybody gets what they need.
And then I'll just add, from a national perspective, it's the unhelpful rhetoric that we're seeing. I'd like to believe it's limited to the talking heads who are, talking about the national security threat of terrorists coming into this country, when in fact we know that these are allies. And I mean that in a broad sense, right? I mean that broader than special immigrant visas. They are people who absolutely deserve and need kind of protection. And I also think it's been really inspiring from my vantage point to see not just the organizations represented on this call kind of working together, but I've never seen a broader coalition of veterans groups, humanitarian organizations, resettlement agencies, church groups. It's pretty spectacular, all of whom believe that they deserve a hero's welcome. So I think, I feel like I'm pretty blessed in the sense that it's been really tough, because I feel like it's going from crisis to crisis. And it sure would have been nice if we had had a little bit of lead time rather than, this being in the first year of a new administration. But I just wanted to say that every single one of these panelists have stepped up in such an amazing way that it really is inspiring.
Thank you. I know we are a few minutes over on time, but we've got about 2 or 3 more technical questions left that we'd love to address if you can accommodate us. The first one is for Krish. There's a couple of Afghan families asking what the legal options would be to reunite, or if you're aware of any pathways or how they could identify who might be eligible to apply for something like that.
And sorry, I just want to make sure you mean in terms of the traditional family reunification process?
I think just broadly, they're asking what are the options that they might have if they're here and they have loved ones still in Afghanistan. What can they do?
Yeah. So, this is a time where I think the administration is trying to just candidly figure out what options look like. There have been some discussions of two things. So one, there is negotiations happening in terms of once, now that the airport is under Taliban control, are there going to be options of flights that would leave? Unfortunately, obviously, we've heard the Taliban say that Afghans who have proper paperwork could depart the country, and we're still trying to get clarity on precisely what that means. As I mentioned earlier, land crossings, I think there are some negotiations going on in terms of whether people could have safe passage that way. Candidly, the sense that I have gotten is that there may be an opportunity, but it's going to require for some visa to be in hand, because countries like Uzbekistan or Pakistan seem to want to make sure that individuals who are coming into the country have a very clear en route to a final destination. And then, in terms of kind of making sure that those visas are available, particularly to come to the US, I think there needs to be real focus on USCIS. The fact that we have a process in place that is so far behind what was legally required, for example, the special immigrant visa process, right? We were supposed to process those visas in 9 months' time legally. And in fact, it was taking more than 3.5 years on average. With the refugee resettlement system, people are waiting for decades, right? So we know that at some points in the last few weeks, at least 30 to 40,000 Afghans were fleeing the country per week. And to the comments and questions about Afghan women, we knew that 80% of the people who were fleeing were women and girls. And so, just as I said at the beginning, in terms of our protection and our support has to extend beyond the military presence, we've got to figure out a way for those who were able to get out of country, as well as those who are still in country. How do we help them, if they're in a refugee camp, if they're in a temporary location in a third country, but that obviously is not a permanent solution. We need to push with the administration, with Congress, to figure out how we can do that.
Thank you. I think that's really vital information. Our final question is for Ms. Fariad. People would just love to hear a little more detail about your Afghanistan project and what your plans are for developing it further in the future.
So right now, we're collecting the names of the volunteers through that link that we put up on the chat. If you're interested, please sign up. We will be sending out a Zoom link for a conversation this week. The volunteers, you'll be assigned a manager and someone to kind of streamline all of the issues you're having. And then they will have conversation with me, and then I will have conversation with the with LSS, so that there is a process and that we can streamline all the conversation without 15 million people going all over and having the same conversation with people. So we're not wasting time, and everything has a process. Now, once we're in the system, you're in the system, your background check is done, which should be at any time now. Once you sign up, then we're going to start giving you workload that's going to happen. And I can't stress this enough to let people know that this is a great opportunity to volunteer, but please, if you don't have the time or the ability to drive or to move around, take into consideration when you're volunteering, because the Avalon Project is strictly for people who have the ability and the time and the capacity to get in their car, move around, shift things over, get on their computer, do research, and so that we can streamline this in a very positive and organized way. Again, I can give you my information, and you can email me if you have further questions. But this hopefully is something that we can keep on going with all the volunteers on the list, and something that we can use to replicate as an ongoing project. Even if there was another community that would be in the same crisis. So I'm not sure if I answered the question, but again, if you have any further questions, I'll type in my email address and you can get in contact with me.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone for joining us this evening and for staying a little bit over. Stay safe and have a blessed night.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.